guitar friend. It's your guitar friend, Tim. Today we're looking at one of the most iconic songs with the best riffs of all time, Money for Nothing, as played by Mark Knopfler with Dire Straits. Special guest, Eric Clapton. I mean, it's one not to miss. You're going to learn about how Knopfler approaches the minor pentatonic, what parts of it he uses the most. He's got this trick where his index finger does something unexpected. Stick around for that. And you'll see how Clapton is different but similar in a lot of ways. Both of them build these masterful solos. Both of them are doing things that you can do. The last thing we're going to see is how and when to use the Dorian mode in the song. So if you've heard about modes, you don't know where to start, this is a great place to start because there's one particular chord and there's one particular note that you add to a regular minor pentatonic and then you're off to the races. It sounds great. Let's enjoy, guitar friend. Knopfler, Clapton, Money for Something. Nebworth, take me there. Mark starting it off, establishing that vibe, that anticipation. So I'm going to start and stop a lot, and I apologize, but just to get things squared away, I just want to let you know I am not going to be historically the encyclopedia or the Wikipedia of guitar tone and of who was what and when and where and what amp and what everything they were using at the time. I'm just going in for like grabbing some style ideas. I'll show you a little bit of what I think I know as far as some of these moves, some of those kind of things. So like, for example, that fast sort of Knopfler-esque Knopfler run is coming from box 1. We're in G minor. And it's basically just, I'm going to highlight the key notes that he's hitting within that. And, you know, he's grabbing this as well. And right there, that little piece of it, what looks like just sort of the top of a G, take off some of the overdrive, a G minor right there. So there's a G minor triad, and then there's so something right there that you could practice like with a backbeat, like a backing track would just be. And if you're not familiar with playing on the finger style, that's a whole other thing to work on with that right hand. So he's you know, very famously got that thumb kind of sticking out there, and he uses his first and second finger a lot to get that. So he's got that finger per string, and it gets that kind of country chicken picking thing mixed over this really cool, you know, rock setting. So if you did that just kind of over and over again. So that whole flourish there, ba-da-ba-dip, becomes like one thing you can hit like a button in your mind. And then he bends that note right there. That's that flat 7, bending it up to the root. So it's really important, as always, to recognize where the root notes are in your scale shapes and just kind of where there are like these checkpoints where you've got this. So those notes right there that are bright pink, you could just literally have a field day with that and just go to town with that. The other note in here that he plays a lot is right there. He puts in that. And what's really signature about that is that, yes, he does bend it. He does that a lot, but often he'll do that. And you'll see in the right hand, he's able to start and stop the notes by using his thumb and his finger to really use it as like a damping pedal. That's one of the beautiful things of playing that finger style thing, is that you can get that muting. So right there, I'm doing thumb and first finger just on the same string, which gives me that kind of like staccato thing. There's another thing you could just run just like right over a backing track, just like. You get the idea? Okay, Mark, continue. My bad. When we're going into Clapton town, something that's very signature to him are these like these 3-note. And I think he's kind of starting like, and you notice how he's got the same notes but that's that G minor shape. And you can find it most easily thinking of that sort of A bar chord, A minor bar chord shape right there, right? But it's a really, I think, kind of underutilized spot for playing these like these sort of blues licks here, because a lot of times we fall in love with where we can find them down here. But there's just a different tone, and it's thicker, and it's kind of more Clapton-esque. So let's see what he's playing here. So he starts off almost playing like a, but he just sort of quotes a little bit of like almost like a G major pentatonic thing, but then he goes from there. So he's probably just going down to that box one there. Kind of messing around down there. So it could be there, down there in box one, and it could be... So that's all I'm trying to show you, is that we're going to be seeing these different familiar minor pentatonic spots. Okay, so all these dots can sometimes be overwhelming. You don't need all of them. I'm just kind of starting to sketch in this area here. And you'll see these kind of like diagonal movements that you sometimes hear about people saying like, yeah, you've got the diagonal version of the pentatonic. And that's totally true. It's good to find it in these little runs within these sort of overlapping shapes. So that's another really important spot there. It kind of continues up in that diagonal motion. A lot of this is just due to the fact that that feels good and it's easy to grab with our hands, with our fingers. It's sort of ergonomic, right? So you've got this kind of right there, so something that Knopfler likes to do is this. So the classic way of holding this box one down here is having your index finger right rooted on the 3rd fret. But he likes to do a bit of that. So he goes there, and then he slides up, puts his index finger on the 5th fret, and then it gives him these. See if I can find that without fishing around too long. So if we light up that and box one, it's where they overlap that the interesting stuff is happening there with what Mark's playing. So he's doing that and that classic. Then he goes. So the important thing is that his index finger is there, and it gives him. That's why it's really important to push yourself into these different areas and different boxes that you might not use as much, even if you just carve in one little part of it that you're using as like a new trick, because it's the way that it lands in your fingers that will lend itself to new ideas. It's almost like going into an alternate tuning. If you've ever like done drop D or dadgad or open G, it kind of disorients you in a good way, and you'll come up with new stuff. It goes way down. All right. The riff. Hell yeah. Demonetized, and I knew it going into it. Let's enjoy it. As long as they don't copyright strike me. Here we go, baby. Here. All right, look at that style there. Anchoring with these two fingers. So it's all thumb and fingers 1 and 2. So that's that riff there, that B flat to C, that's what I drew in there. Now we do the F to G. So repeat the verse, that's that G vamp down there. Here comes the chorus, E flat, B flat, F, back to G, up to C, D, E major. Look at those outfits. Those are power suits. Those are pantsuits for the boys. Look at that ashtray. Look at that ashtray. I got a bass just like that. All right, gang. All right, it goes without saying, incredible songwriting, great storytelling, and then this great riff. So, this is one where I don't know that I don't even know that I would break this down in a detailed way for the harmonic structure of it. Other than that, we've got this G vamp, and it's based around G minor, but it's almost like it's kind of neither minor nor major. It's got this kind of like power chord tonality to it, because and you can definitely play the minor pentatonic over it. You wouldn't be doing that would sound out of place. So it would lean minor. And then that little sort of B flat to C would just be a note to myself to be like, okay, it's like a... But I don't think of that as much as like a big chord change. It's sort of like a riff moment of just like... And then the same thing, it just sort of resolves at the end of that verse with a F to G. So it does that twice for the first verse. Then it goes to this E flat. And this part does kind of make sense, because if we're thinking G as our minor, our relative major, that would be B flat. So it's sort of like momentarily we're going to like a 4 chord in B flat, which is great. That's sort of like almost like a major blues kind of thing in B flat. Boom, boom, B flat, back up to E flat. Boom, 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 which is great because that E flat to F is a really nice, powerful chord progression that kind of gets us back up to G. It would be sort of like all along the Watchtower. So we're getting that kind of whole tone movement, meaning like we're moving by a whole step. Boom, boom, boom. So we come back to that. Get to move these refrigerators. Then C major. And that's the thing in this song that creates a nice Dorian aspect to it. Having a C major there, that would not normally be in our home key of, if it were B flat major, we would normally go B flat as the 1, C minor. And even in G minor, you would possibly see either a C minor or a C major. But the thing about this being major, I'll just do a big capital M there, is that introduces this note. So you're not always going to be able to hit that E, but it can come in those moments where it brings that kind of... So it's a real nice sort of flavor. You'll hear them do that, and later Clapton's going to drop that into his solo, almost as like that's sort of the notable exception to the usual just G minor kind of thing. And then we've got this really cool thing that happens that I think was probably just a cool, happy accident, but what it does is that we go from... we're coming back to that G minor. Refrigerators, C major, up to D, and then it goes to E major, which is almost a momentary departure. But what I think makes it work is, one, it's just cool, and then we just drop back down to G. But also we've already just had a movement like that. So that B flat to E flat to F, the E flat to F to G is a... And we went back to the G minor, but the bass line did that movement just a moment before. So E flat, F, G, and now we're going to do C, D, E. It just has a nice kind of it's almost like it continually ascends and just creates this really nice sort of lift. And that's why the vocals and everything does that. And they're all harmonizing. And then we have this beautifully abrupt drop back into. So that's kind of the scan of the chords and the changes, which all this does in a beautiful way is that it's kind of like what any good blues song does, where it gives you a bit of a release. And when I think of the blues go into the 5 chord, and then it goes to the 4, and it comes back to the 1, and then it goes back up to the 5. It has this movement where it gives you this sort of setup to refresh. And because this goes to this really cool E major chord, it gives us this totally nice like sort of palate cleanser before dropping right back into this solo, which would be real stinky and just, you know, contrast. It's key. Yeah. Mark. Right there. All right, tasty solo, and let's look at it because it's some of the elements, not to say I told you so. I did listen to it a little bit beforehand, but most of this is just off the cuff. But he plays that Dorian note, that E major. So listen to the solo, how he gets into it. So he starts kind of in that spot where the riff. So he goes, something along those lines, but the beauty is that he's got that spot where he's just kind of hanging out there, and that's where he's fingering it, and it's not, you know, he's not particularly committing to like that spot. If anything, he's just kind of punching into it and probably thinking these more or less grounded in that first box down there. So where I see the activity happening here, this is kind of like a way that I've come to like to scribble out these riffs rather than tabbing it out. It's more like a heat map of like, oh, okay, so he's kind of doing that. He loves that in-between note. That's that. He's going right down one string, and then he can, if he wants to, play that open G, which he does, or he can play it there. And he spends a lot of time there, and he might sort of, you know, do one of those flourishes. So you could kind of say this area right here is like, that's kind of where the action is happening, which is just a great way to look at it, because then not only do you know like more or less how to play the notes that he's playing, but you can play it in the area and the spot of the neck, because those are kind of the easiest spots to play those notes. The other notes that you'll need are sort of living right around them. I'm just sort of circling the G notes. So you're like, oh, okay, those are my roots right there. That's useful to have those in mind. So it's like, so it would be a good thing to practice maybe, let's say with our track. That little bam, that's the going up to that C. So let's sort of highlight that and I don't know, yellow. I don't know, yellow. That's the way to do it here. So that's that C. So I'll circle that right there. Right when it goes to that C. Okay, so. Something like that, gang. It's fun. You're just sort of on the playground at that point. Let's see what else he's got. Right there. So there he does that move again, right? So look for that move. Watch his left hand after he's spending a lot of time down here. So first finger, that index is sort of anchored in that sort of root position there, box one. But then when he goes up watch that index slide up to the 5th fret. Just look for that this time around. Right there. And look out, little foreshadowing, he's going to bring in another note that isn't in the pentatonic, and this one he adds quite often to great effect. I don't know what color would show up here. Let's try, I'll just turn it into a hodgepodge. I'll erase some of these extra notes here, but wrong one right there. So it's going to be this note right here. That's the 9. That big empty circle right there, that's like the 2 or the 9. So we've got, here's our root. classic Knopfler kind of sound. He'll go to it later. Nice way to add tension and build up to that minor third by starting on the 2. Here we go. Nice. So that's where you go. Here comes Clapton. Let's look at that. Okay, so that vibrato is everything. It's like, so he's much further up the neck, and he's got, I would say, like he's working his way, I would say, up towards this box 1 that's up above. So the same shape you see there up there, but an octave higher. And he's kind of working his way up there on the 2nd string. And on that 2nd string, you've got a lot more of room for that vibrato that can happen. Notice that for those vibrato moments, he really likes to use that 1st finger, and then the weight of his hand can just sort of give that really wide vocal vibrato type of sound. Let me. So it's really like a. I think he's kind of like hitting that. He really likes that diagonal movement there. So he's up here, kind of hitting that note, sliding down, and then sliding on down through this map to this map. Bam, beep, beep, whoa, big dot. And again, it's that diagonal movement there, right? So that's why it's good to learn these shapes and where and how they connect. So you can play across those seams, as it were, and make them nice and smooth. So lighting it up with like the hot pink is just a way of showing like that's where a lot of the action is. Okay, here we go. Goes up. Okay, so it's all about for both of them. Notice how they set up the tension where they start lower and then they let it breathe, and then they both, all roads eventually led up to this box 1 that's up here above the 12th fret, right? And Clapton, on the other hand, whereas Mark was kind of playing, well, I'll show you what areas they were each emphasizing. But Clapton kind of gets way up there and gets more into like these higher bends of like. And really, he does that sort of Clapton thing where like he'll put that big vibrato on it and he'll really let a long bend kind of like tail off slowly. And the control of that vibrato and bending the note and releasing it slowly gives it that vocal quality that takes tons of time to just really trust your ear and get the muscle memory to match. Let's listen again. Okay, so he kind of sets it up. He's up there, but he hasn't gone as high as he's about to go. So right there, I mean, that's bending this note. So that's a thing you'd want to really practice so that you can not only bend this with control, but then be able to, with your pinky, grab that note underneath. So put in the time so that's not like a big sort of like not too much tension or not too much leaping for it, right? So yeah, really good tone, really good control, but basically these are just, the same exact notes we all have, you know, and just giving it his finesse and giving it that light pink sport coat energy. Look at that strap, the whole thing. So something you could do to work on this is just make it really smooth to be able to playing the notes fretted. Up there where it's kind of smaller frets, you know, you got to be able to navigate those spaces. But the game would be to do that waterfall and then play a long held out bend, right? Every weekday, my members and I go live together for about 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm literally your coach. We do a warm-up, I run you through some new riffs that you can start using, and then we just jam for a bit. And you can be on the other side of the screen doing your own thing, or you can be commenting and checking in with people and having a good time. You could also watch any of the workouts at your leisure. We have over 100 of them recorded now, and you can search them by topic, so you can zero in on something that you're looking to get better at and go do. For more information, just head over to guitarfriendtim.com. The link is in the description. Thanks.